everybody. Welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. It is the mystical Ashley. I have somewhat returned back to the wonderful world of work. And I am here joined by Han. You've got a special little snacky
Hi.
snack.
Both of
You
us.
know, I know, unusual. And we're here because as these things often spur from a chat between us on Slack where we're ranting or moaning about something or other.
No, we never
And
rant on mine. Don't lie to
no,
people like that.
I
We're always
love
super
everything.
positive.
Yes, I think people would say that that's true, to be fair, even because we're just very nice people. Blah. Um, so anyways, how are you, first of all, before we go into everything?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. How are you? How are you, more importantly, being new mum? How's Ellie? How's life?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. She's 5 months now, so
Blimey.
that's gone fast. And yeah, really good, to be fair. She mostly sleeps through the night, so I can't say I'm like dying
Winning.
of sleep deprivation or anything. She's really chill. She feeds well. She's a pretty content baby, so life's easy enough on that side. So I'd say she slotted in well with the family, and it's just that period of adjustment is not, someone said once that there will be a point, or maybe I read it, there will be a point when you leave the house with all your children, including the new addition, and it'll just feel normal. And I think I've got to that stage now where I feel like, okay, like it's just normal. We have
Yeah,
another
it's
one.
another human. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that's lovely. I
freaking,
can't believe it's been 5 months already. Time's
I
flying.
know. I know it's gone fast. So yeah, so good. And I've missed the podcast. I've missed work. I've
Mm.
missed that aspect of my life and part of my identity and something I'm really passionate about. So I'm feeling really energized to
I
come
can
back.
hear our listeners being like, "You're crazy. Take more time off."
Yeah, but you know what? It's right for my family, and I think it works. We've got a good balance. And so yeah, we've got loads of ideas and things that we're planning
Mm.
for the new year, and
I
we've
think
just been doing some
2025 is going to be
brainstorming.
our year. I'm going to manifest it on the podcast. It's going to be
Oh
our year.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's nice to see your face. It's nice to do a recording with you, and I'm glad you're well as well. So, let's get into the subject. So, this again, typically these things spur from something that's happening with one of our clients or something
Hmm.
that we see a couple of times, and we're like, why is it always happening like this? Why are things going that way? And we've done a podcast previously about like the marketing function, or I think it was internal comms, friend or
Yeah.
foe, I believe, and I will link to that in the show notes as well. But essentially, we've seen there's a couple of different scenarios. So some L&D departments really do just disregard internal comms as like a pain in our bums. All they
Hmm.
do is block, make things difficult. And so we want to dig into that a little bit because it isn't as clear as that, and they're not necessarily there to be difficult, but there is a hierarchy of things going on in the organization that we need to kind of take into account. And the converse of that as well is almost expecting either marketing or internal comms to manage your learning marketing for you, or your marketing for learning. And both of these areas are things that we've seen in real use cases where L&D are like, well, they can just do that.
Hmm.
And so we kind of again want to talk about the pitfalls of that, why that's potentially a weak strategy when it comes to marketing, and also I guess just the semantics of the organization and kind of understanding that hierarchical structure and perhaps where in the pecking order
Yeah.
L&D sits, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we kind of have to be real with ourselves. And I think that's what we want to get across in this podcast episode as well. That, yep, absolutely. Marketing for learning is incredibly important. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think that. L&D is obviously even more important than that because we're marketing the L&D. But within the whole organization, as Ash just said, there's a pecking order. And where do we sit in that? And we need to be realistic. We're not just going to walk in and be like, we are the most important people here. We need to respect what's going on in the organization. And a lot of that, again, in both sides of this podcast, in terms of actually listening to internal comms and marketing when they're saying, actually, this probably isn't the right time, or no, or they're poo-pooing our ideas for whatever reason. But then also when we're just going, oh, marketing can do that, that's their job. There's other things that they're also focused on. So I think we should get into a little bit of why. God, I don't want this to feel like we're putting L&D in their place, but almost L&D need to get their place.
Yeah, well, I think this it's the irony is there's this constant discussion around we need a seat at the table and we need to be visible to the organization and we need to, we talk a lot about befriending the organization, building relationships with stakeholders outside of specific needs, things like that. But there does still kind of seem to be this like, oh, well, we need this thing doing, so people should do it. So almost we're the order takers, but we kind of, that gets kind of spun out from us as
Yeah.
well.
Place orders as well.
Yeah, and I just I think like when we work with a client, I'm always like, I need to know the shape and size of the box that we're stuck in before we know like what boundaries we can push. So, if we talk to the internal comms piece first in terms of, there's other things going on and where do we sit within the organization? My opinion is based on every project we've ever done where internal comms is involved is we kowtow to them. They dictate a lot of our lives when it comes to marketing internally because for a long time they have held the keys to that. They're not about to relinquish those to us
Mm-hmm.
quickly or easily or without good reason. And so they also, I think, have a much broader visibility over the organization as a whole. They do have a bit more of a bird's eye view in terms of what's actually happening. Future view as well, perhaps, might have a much closer touch point to stakeholder, CEO,
Yeah.
C-suite. And so, it isn't, I suppose, I think you can probably talk to a key example that you wanted to
Yeah.
use, but to my mind, we need to have these people involved with our marketing projects, not necessarily as telling us how it should look or what we say or when we or what we do, but there are other things going on in the business that we have to take into consideration. And so we can't just go like, hey, we're going to launch this campaign and do it for 6 months. Well, actually, you can't because we have our Pride Month here in June and we
Yeah.
have this happening and we've got all these other initiatives that are quite noisy. And you can't just then try and add to your noise because guess what? It'll just get ignored anyways. So I don't know if you kind
Exactly.
of want to follow up with that and build
Yeah.
on what you were saying to me.
So I'm actually working with a few clients at the moment, and I'm sure this will not be dissimilar for anybody listening. A lot of organizations are going through restructuring at the moment, redundancies are happening. We all know the state of the workplace at the moment. And with those clients, unsurprisingly, we're getting a little bit of pushback from internal comms. And the way it feels after you've been working on a project for so long and you're ready to go, you're ready to press that big button saying launch. And you like, it's marketing for learning. We're going to like, it's exciting. It's something different for all of these clients. For then internal comms to say, oh, no, actually, don't do it then. It feels like they're just being a bit annoying. It feels like they're just ruining our fun. But if we take ourselves and the emotions out of it, it's so incredibly valuable. So one of my clients who've been told to avoid a certain week, the message is avoid that week. We can't tell you why, but avoid that week. They know a restructuring is going on. They know there's big, important messages going out from a new leader. So that's essentially what's happening on that week. We're not idiots. We can work that out through the conversation and through them not telling us anything, but don't use that week. All that's doing for us in the project is shifting everything back a week or two. That's not the end of the world. Okay, we've got Christmas coming up, so we need to rejig some stuff. It's not the end of the world. But it's also meaning we're not competing with these big organizational announcements that are going to take everyone's attention away from anything they want to do, anything they're doing for themselves. They're not going to be thinking about it. They're going to be really thinking about these big structural changes. So for some organizations, that could be redundancies. People might suddenly be like, am I going to lose my job? Am I next? And they might be terrified. They then don't want to get a message about, here's how you future-proof your career with learning. It's
It feels
just,
quite trite, doesn't it?
yeah, the wrong
Mm.
message at the wrong time. And we need to be respectful of that. And often internal comms, because they do give us that box, as you said, that we're allowed to play within, and they're quite restrictive in many instances, they get painted as the big bad wolf. But actually, what they're doing in that instance is making sure that when we do launch the campaign, it is more successful for us. We have a receptive audience. No, you
Mhm.
can't put things on hold indefinitely. The business still needs to go. You still have your targets to hit and your business objectives to hit and your personal objectives to hit, but actually taking some consideration of what's going on outside the world of L&D. And I think this does come back to the fact that we also often work in silos. We only
Mhm.
think about what's going on in the L&D box. What's happening elsewhere? Like you just
Yep.
said, it might not be something as scary almost for your employee base as redundancies and restructuring. It could be Pride Month. It could be, I don't know, I can't think of any other initiatives. It's been too long since we've worked in corporate environments. It could be something else that's just creating a lot of
Learning at work
noise.
week, don't do it.
That's why I didn't say learning at work week, because no. But there's other things always going on. Like, not to give too much away about where I live, but I live near the Tesco head office and often cut through it. And they've always got something at the front door. There's always something else going on. At the moment, they've got a deck chair, and I really want to find someone to be like, why is there a deck chair? It's November. But, anyways, they've always got these big internal communications initiatives going on. Yes, learning is incredibly important, but you need to work around that stuff or tie your message into it, make a connection. If we're
Yeah.
just ignoring everything else in the business and throwing more noise into the mix, we're not going to cut through. We're not going to get that audience attention. And then it's almost a waste putting all that effort into actually creating the marketing for learning.
Yeah.
Timing's really, really important.
It is, and it needs to be considered from the outset. And as I recall, that the specific project that you're referring to, you've actually had internal comms involved throughout the project. So
Whole way through.
we're not even saying that having them involved as a stakeholder mitigates the need for these last minute adjustments, because again, the business is a bigger beast than L&D, and there are things that are deemed more important at certain times, as you've rightly said. And sometimes, some of my clients, like an announcement will just come from the CEO because there's stuff going on much
Yeah.
higher up that nobody else has
I was about to
visibility
say
over. And
with,
then suddenly, you know, hey,
yeah,
oh, look, here's some new information. And internal comms has to react to that.
yeah.
And then as a consequence of that, everything else has to then react to that. So it's a domino effect.
Hmm.
And so, again, building in when you're building out campaigns, planning for the unexpected, building in contingencies. It's very unusual that we would have such like a hard deadline that it would really cripple you if you had to adjust your campaign by a couple of weeks. Like it's not
Hmm.
gonna ruin something one way or the other. And if it does, you've started your campaign too late, in my opinion. If you're
Literally what I
marketing
was
for a
about to
campaign
say. Yeah.
March, yeah,
If
then
there's
it's
a
not up.
certain day, if you've got like a learning platform launch or something like that, you shouldn't start marketing it on the day it launches. You've missed the boat at that point.
Yeah,
So also a lot of consideration in when you're actually doing your marketing initiatives needs to come into play. We need to take a bit of responsibility for that. And like you said, bake in that time that, hey, there is a bit of wiggle room. Like for us, this project being pushed back a couple of weeks, it's not changed the project at all. I've just had to
yeah.
rejig some social posts. It's not breaking anything at all.
Yeah. And actually, I think because you've had internal comms involved throughout that project, they're probably much more amenable and have a big more of a willingness to support the adjustments that are being made. So like
Mhm.
I wouldn't maybe go as far as to say they're apologetic because I expect they're not, but they might have a little bit more
They actually
generosity of
are.
spirit into yeah, okay. So then
Yeah.
great example, right? Like they're bought into what you're doing.
Mhm.
It's just, we want to do this too. We think it's important, but, and maybe they don't say it in that exact way, but it is actually like, look, this thing's happening. We can't do it this week, but next week, week after, whatever works for you guys is fine. We've carved out time for that, whatever. So again, because like we said, you've built a relationship outside of a need per se, it's then helped to ensure that, that relationship can run across rocky waters and
Yeah.
still remain intact and in fact be valuable for both sides without causing a huge amount of unrest with either function. So
Yeah.
I guess for me the key takeaway is these people can be a pain in the bum because they, like you said, they do just sometimes seem obtuse. As
Mm-hmm.
you were talking, I could think of two other examples of campaigns I've done with clients. One where we had done the whole discovery piece. I trained all their team. I'd built out all the campaign strategy and all the campaign assets. And literally, I think it was I'd signed it off with them at like the end of December, and it was supposed to launch in January. And about a week before we were supposed to go off for Christmas, their like head of internal comms basically came and was like, look, we're doing this like big people initiative next year. We've got like an internal tagline that we're building, and then it had kind of deviations of that for like sub brands. So we had to
Mm-hmm.
just completely change the tagline for the campaign, which
Yeah.
I did feel weakened it a little, but it didn't kill it by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to then adjust all the assets because that
Yeah.
tagline was changed, and we had to adjust how we maybe did parts of the campaign and things like that to accommodate this change. It's an absolute pain, but what's the alternative? Your communications then feel really disjointed from the rest of the business. So I think that the reality is, they're not coming from a place of being difficult for difficult sake. It's often there's decisions that are being made further up the pecking order that we have to just step in line with and follow in step, and
Yeah.
we cannot just dig our heels in and expect the organization to come to
Yeah.
us when it comes to stuff like this. Like we just, like I said, we have to kowtow to internal comms and their branding and the
Yeah.
parameters that they've got and their communications strategy, their communications plan. We've got to fit in with all of that.
And the best way to make that easier for yourself, get them involved up front. So I've
Yep.
got another project that I'm working on, and we've been tootling along. And no, yep, you pick your images, Hannah. That's great. You've got Envato, which is obviously a stock site that we use. You pick the images. It's fine. We're almost at launch. Oh, wait, no, you've got to use our internal system. Otherwise, we've got to go through the whole branding process and get sign off on every single asset.
Nope.
I easily could have just picked from their images in the first place. If they just got internal comms brought in properly and our communications were clear, that's not my responsibility as an external stakeholder. I said, is there a particular place we need to go to? What's the internal comms approval? No, no, nothing, nothing, nothing. In your organization as an L&D leader, make sure you know what the processes are. Make sure you know what you're meant to be doing. It will make your life easier. Yes, it might be really annoying that you can't find the perfect image on your internal site, or you can't use that shade of blue that you really want to use. Or look, I pulled Ashley up just yesterday. Was it Monday? Whatever it was. She showed me a post that she was putting up, and I was like, oh, that's the wrong shade of pink, Ashley. That's not our pink anymore. We're all
Tisk, tisk,
annoying.
tisk.
We're all annoying. And
I
just
had a
being
baby. Leave me alone, man.
I forgive you, don't worry.
Thank you.
But no, like we all have the boxes we have to operate within business. We do. Know what that box is. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't
Yeah.
try to come up with something that's really fun and exciting and different and then realize you can't do it. Work within the parameters that are being set for you. Make sure that you're aware of what they are. Don't just go
Yeah.
full steam ahead and then go, oopsie.
That's not a unique hardship. Like that's literally marketing life though, and
Mm-hmm.
especially agency side. Like I can't think of the last time I was able to create a campaign that had no brand parameters in place because what is a business without a brand? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I have, yes, I've certainly worked on projects where the brand ident is loose, shall we say. And actually, vague guidelines are sometimes more challenging to adhere to than really strict ones because vague guidelines often don't have a lot of parameters in place, which means there's not a lot of resources available. So then you're
Mm-hmm.
having to create from scratch. And as someone who's maybe not a branding person, someone who's not naturally sitting in that kind of design space, that's really difficult. Whereas if you
Yeah.
have an asset library of pre-approved source imagery, you know it's on brand, boom, okay. Like it
Yeah.
does make your life. I
It
like stock
makes
curation of stock imagery is hands down one of the most time-consuming pieces of work we ever do.
boring.
Yeah, also very boring.
Boring, boring, boring.
Yeah.
It's one
So
of
they've done
my
a lot of
least
work for
favorite
you.
bits of any project ever. And that's almost probably why it hurt me a little bit more when they were like, wait, no, you can't use these images after I went through the boring task of curating them all. But
Yeah.
Obviously, for you and I, if we've got loose brain guidelines, we're marketers. We've been doing this a long time. We can make it work and we can make something that's on brand. But like you just said, for L&D professionals trying to do this marketing for learning thing on their own, which a lot of people listening will be, it makes your life easier. Yes, it's restrictive. Yes, like I said, you might not be able to find the perfect image or do that thing that you've got in your head, but it makes the whole process a little bit simpler. I genuinely think it's a positive for us if we frame it in the right way in our own minds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's a natural segue there into the other part of the discussion that we wanted to have, which is, internal comms are, I think, so the way I see it is like internal comms have a obligation to be involved in what we're doing, because if you think about marketing for learning, it is internal communication, really. So,
Don't tell anyone.
yeah, so we're naturally sitting in that box with them. Our box is a box within their box. So many boxes. It's like a Russian doll. Um, but the converse of that is, yeah, but then there's this delicious marketing function on the other side. And you see all the stuff they put out. You see how mint their website is and all the social media that they do. And wow, like I want a piece of that. Like what they do is like way cooler than the stuff me and internal comps can do. Like what the heck is going on with that? Surely marketing should just be doing this stuff.
Mm.
Mm.
As
Mm.
a ex-internal marketer, where do you think they're getting that time? Like, marketers are so busy, and I think a lot of that assumption comes down to a real lack of awareness about what marketing is.
Yep.
Because typically the people that think marketing can jump in and just do stuff for you on the side of their desk are the ones that think marketing is just making things look pretty. So that's my take on it. I think marketing are busy. They have a completely different audience to you. Chances are the customers of your organization are not your employees. So you
Absolutely.
have a different audience to them. They are focused on getting business in typically. They are focused on creating that demand for the business and all things like that. They are typically so very busy. Are they just going to be able to jump in and do your marketing for learning projects for you? Maybe in 2028.
Yeah, and I think whilst they have a lot of the skills to execute that, I think the two things that you mentioned are exactly correct. Their lack of understanding of the audience is quite crucial, but also marketing is led by a commercial aspect. So their role is primarily to build business and build brand equity. And so if they're not delivering on the commercial aspect of their function, there's going to be a very quick discussion around why there's not ROI. What's the, where are the leads from the money we spent? Blah, blah, blah. We've all been there. So again, asking them to take time away from commercial outcomes that help them look better in the business because they're achieving their job descriptions and accomplishing their strategy and bearing in mind their marketing. So they may, not always, because we've gone about strategies and stuff. Plenty of marketing functions I've worked with and encountered don't
Mhm.
have strategies, but if they do, they've got a very clear plan of action and a road that they're on. So you can
Yeah.
the train's already left the station. You can't really hop on it. But I think that's the big thing for me is what you're asking them to do isn't really commercial.
Yeah.
It might help with like
I want to
corporate.
play, yeah, I was about to say, I want to play devil advocate. I don't agree with what I'm about to say, but I know people will be thinking it, listening in. You said they're focused on commercial and making like the impact for the business and all of that. Arguably, having better performing employees will naturally contribute to that. So surely what we're doing is also doing that. So why shouldn't they help us?
Because, well, I mean, yes, I understand what you're saying, but to me, the two things are quite unrelated. So, employee attraction and retention is all around like the corporate image, and there's a term which my baby brain can't quite land on, which is it usually sits with people or talent, but it's all around the kind of the corporate image, corporate brand, um, building the best image of the business as possible. That's still external marketing for a start.
Hmm.
So again, it is best placed with internal comms. They know what channels will work best. They know the audience a little bit better. I expect they are not done market research because the type of comms that they do is again very transactional type communications. Here's something that's happening. Here's some news, some things you need to
Hmm.
know about. Oh my God, you got a new platform. Here's another new platform. Oh, we got a new HRIS. Oh, we got a new this, whatever. That's the nature of their communications. It's
Yeah.
communications. It's not marketing.
Yeah.
So marketing, your marketing function, very, very good. Oh, look, I just said marketing and marketing. Stupid accent. But those two functions, their remit is really different. And neither can or should do the role of marketing for learning. I do think it is
Hmm.
our responsibility, but I think internal comms are a great resource and support
And they're
system for us
closer
potentially,
to
and
what
they
we're doing.
understand what our objectives and what we're trying to do, whereas marketing, it's almost like internal comms is looking inwards and
Yeah,
marketing's looking outwards, and like you said, like,
exactly.
so they're looking at the public and how do we convert these people to become our customers. I want to eat, sleep, live, and breathe the customer. The employee isn't the customer. Very important to keep the business going, but that is not the job of the marketing function. It
Yeah.
is the job of the people function, the talent function, the HR function, the L&D function.
L&D.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
experience, whatever you want to call it, right? So to
No,
my
I
mind,
absolutely
like,
agree. It's, and like I said when I asked you the question, I didn't believe it. I just know people listening will be thinking that of like, well, we are commercially important too, and yeah, but in a different way. And like, I love that marketing's external, and then we and internal comms are looking internally, different audience, different space. And actually, I did the marketing masterclass yesterday, and we talk. It's actually in the copywriting piece, but we talk about knowing why you're writing, and I think it's actually quite interesting because internal comms, there's three buckets. You're either educating, informing, or persuading. Internal comms sit in that informing a lot. I hope no internal comms people listen to me, but they really, really do. They're just telling this is what's going on in the business. We have this week, this is an announcement that's going out. Very much informing people what's going on. Marketing for learning sits in that persuasion. We are persuading people to give us their time in return for incredible learning, I hope. So that's why, and I completely agree with you, I think we need to own it. No matter how good your internal comms team is, no matter how good your marketing team is, they have different priorities and different ways of doing things. We are focused on persuading your internal audience. Marketing's focused on persuading your external audience, and internal comms are focused on informing your internal audience. I've said too many audiences then, I've
no,
got
no,
myself lost.
you're absolutely
You get
correct.
the gist.
You've done it correctly.
So we're doing something unique from both of those departments. And that's why I think marketing for learning needs to sit within the L&D team, and we need to be owning it.
Yeah, for sure. If we don't, like we said, the result is most businesses that aren't doing it, engagement is low, and
Hmm.
things aren't, the learning isn't getting the outcomes or the impact that they want. And when you were saying, is learning a commercial function? I don't think it is. It's why budgets are getting dropped. It's why
Hmm.
learning functions are becoming homogenized with into people functions and becoming kind of a broader piece of the business pie, because the business struggles to see the value of it. It's almost like
Hmm.
we got to be offering our people something, what's gonna,
Yeah.
and I think that's the position a lot of the time. And so again, it's up to us to really communicate what the value is. It's up to us to actually generate impact, but then communicate that impact. The reality is, if we don't take ownership over our marketing and expect marketing to do it or expect internal comms to do it, it's not going to hit the right notes for the reasons you just outlined. They don't
Hmm.
understand the audience and their focus is not on that. And therefore, they're not going to allocate enough time and resource. And ultimately, they're not really going to spend any meaningful time actually focusing on
Doing it. Yeah.
engagement with learning. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
It's something you said a
it's
long,
not their jobs. That's the end of it,
yeah.
truthfully.
And I'm going to quote you back to you. And I can't remember if it was on the podcast or
It's
a webinar you
bit
did a long
meta, but
time
I like it.
ago. But if marketers did everything L&D did, spent all the money L&D did, all the resources L&D did, and didn't justify the return on investment, our heads would be on the chopping block.
Yep.
Like, I've never worked in a marketing function where we could just get away with spend, 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 spend. It was always spend less, spend less, spend less.
Spend less and get more, spend less and
Yeah.
get more. Mhm.
And we had to, and I know, like, obviously we worked in very different organizations. No, we didn't. They were in the same industry, but we worked in different organizations, and we had to prove our value. We had to prove what we were doing. We had to demonstrate our impact to the business. As much as the sales team were getting leads, we still had to prove what we were doing. And L&D need to take a bit more ownership of that. And that comes into the marketing for learning bubble, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Demonstrating our impact to the business and to the stakeholders, marketing upwards. All of it is so, so important and is a real critical part of marketing for learning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, internal comms isn't going to spend any time or energy trying to prove the value of another and merits of another function. They just don't like again, if you think about the mindset of that audience, like why would they care? There's no why there for them at all. There's no what's in
No.
it for me. There's no motivators there. And same with marketing. Like, oh no, we might lose our L&D function. Sorry, that was
Yeah.
a silent shrug.
But absolutely.
Oh,
Although I
again,
do think if
if
anyone's
people are
playing the what's in it for me bingo, I'm quite impressed that we got 25 minutes in before either of us said what's in it for me.
always in there. It's like a
Always
little
there.
Easter egg, a little. Well, yeah, hey, by the way, when you said earlier about Tesco having a deck chair, it
Yeah.
took everything in me to not interject and just go, yes, but why is there a pineapple? You know,
But why is
branding.
there not more pineapples in the world?
I don't know. I can see at least
No,
three in my eyeline right
but the
now.
pineapple is permanent. This deck chair only appeared recently. It might be a new permanent feature, but I'm not convinced it is.
It's got your attention though,
It has. But
whether
it's an
that's the
internal thing
goal.
because there's probably about 600 of us max that live close enough to cut through their head office. So it's there for their internal audiences. And it's still got my attention, but I want to know what it's about. If anyone from Tesco listens to this, please reach out and tell me.
She's literally losing sleep over this
I
deck chair.
am.
So if you can help a girl out, we'd appreciate it. So hey, look, I've loved chatting with you about this, and I think sometimes I feel like we talk around similar subjects because
Mhm.
it it's like the same, we see these same things over and over again, and it's like I've said to you before, our industry's infatuation with like vendor side. When I worked vendor side, like you get like a company who's from retail. And I can think of actually like learning vendors that pitch themselves like, oh, well, we're like really good in retail or we're really good in hospitality or whatever.
Mhm.
Because there's this like mindset like, oh, well, they understand my business better. Like I need to work with someone who is an expert in hospitality training. But from where I'm stood, regardless of industry. Business size can dictate a few unique challenges, like a
Yep.
small organization versus enterprise. But a lot of these businesses and the challenges within them when it comes to learning and marketing your learning, they persist regardless of function, sorry, regardless of industry.
Hmm.
So, I just don't know that we need to concern ourselves so much with that side of it. Like I need to, oh, have you done this before for this? Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. These problems
And
persist
also,
across.
as much as the problems persist across, I think I said this last week, I think. What works for your audience will work for your audience. It might not work for somebody else's. And what works for theirs probably won't work for you. We're all working in unique organizations that have unique cultures. You've got to do the work for you. The principles are the same, but you've got to do the research and work out what works for your audience.
Yeah.
Or come to somebody like us and we'll do it for you. But it still needs to be unique for your audience rather than
Yeah.
a copy and paste approach. We know lift and shift learning doesn't work. Well, shock horror, lift and shift marketing is a no-go as well.
No, exactly. I mean, to be honest, if you're not going to do the research piece, I don't think there's much point in doing much marketing because we know it won't work.
No,
And
just
like
stick
that,
what you're
that's the
doing
truth
and
of
put
it.
out one email one time and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's not going to change anything if you make them look a little prettier, but they're still missing the notes on the what's in it for me. And even things like we've discussed today, like a big part of discovery is incorporating other stakeholders into your discussions, making them aware of your plans and what you're doing, giving them a voice. Like we always say, like give people a chance to stand on their soapbox early doors so that you don't have to do design by committee later down the
Hmm.
road. But, these are relatively universal problems that aren't unique to a specific organization or industry. These are pretty like common issues that most learning functions are contending with. This is why we started the surgery, the same reason, right? Like people are grappling with the same stuff.
Yeah.
But, I guess to summarize, make friends with internal comms now. I don't care if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do a campaign tomorrow, in 3 months, in a year. Befriend your internal comms team immediately. Marketing are good people to have on side because sometimes they might have tools you could leverage. They again might have an asset library that you can use. In lieu of a internal brand, you're often asked to adopt the external brand, in which case you may have to have some, um, which again I have massive issues with because of the audience issue, but nevertheless I've had to do it. Um, so again, they might be a valuable resource to have on board, involved, at least having that line of communication with, so that as and when you start to build out new strategies and thinking and plan for a campaign, you already have these relationships in place, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not there to do anything for you, but it's a partnership, it's a communication channel, it's clarity, gives you more visibility
Alignment.
as to, yeah, and helps with that timing piece
Yeah.
immensely, so that you're not conflicting with the biggest announcement the organization has seen all year. Well, what's the
Yeah.
point in even doing your campaign if that's the case? So
Yeah.
you got to have these difficult conversations, and they're much less difficult if you've got an established relationship in place.
Absolutely. And you're not going to them with something that's going to blow their minds and completely revolutionize their world. Internal comms and marketing understand marketing for learning. Most of the time, when I talk to internal comms or marketers, they're like, what do you mean? Like, why aren't they doing this? Because we're marketers at our core and it's just obvious to us, but it's not obvious to the rest of the world. So they're going to be brought into the concept of what you're doing. Make those relationships early. It's going to make your entire process so much easier.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes internal comms as well can be initially quite resistant. I've certainly encountered it, especially if you're like sometimes the first time L&D's really been involved with internal comms is when they bring someone like us on board. And it's
Mm,
almost like we've had to mitigate and manage that relationship and really get them bought in, because it seems like L&D sometimes don't really know how to talk to them or how to kind of get
yeah,
them sold. You can't like, oh, I just want to be your friend. Like, oh no, I have to have a reason to be your friend. But actually, no, like just, we're thinking of maybe doing some marketing stuff next year. Could we just start to have a conversation about what your plans are? Maybe we can spitball some ideas. It doesn't have to be that you have a reason to speak to them beyond
yeah,
let's connect and let's be friends and let's network and build those business relationships, which are really crucial. And again,
yeah.
I did say in the last podcast I did, the Art of Networking podcast is coming. I planned it out. I just
Mm,
haven't recorded it yet. And that kind of again naturally seeds into that, like why networking within your organization in particular is crucial if you're going to
yeah,
put your marketing hat on.
absolutely. I think we could talk about this forever. We'd go into the networking podcast if we carried on. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I always love chatting with you. We always say we should do more, la di da di da. So I won't
well,
say that again.
actually, I realised this week, because this is obviously a pre-recording, we are actually together again, and we are intending to do a live podcast again, like we
Oh,
did at
yes,
Learn
we're
It Live. So
learning
might
networks, aren't
be,
we?
yeah, it might be a double whammy of 2 podcasts in a row with both of us. So you hear people faint all over the world with shock and
I know.
surprise.
Strap in, guys. It's overwhelming, I'm sure. Yes. All right. Well, again, as always, pleasure
Yeah,
chatting with you. I'll see you
likewise.
later. Get more pineapples. I can only see three. So just, sorry. Oh, there you go. That's your cue. Hannah's working in a co-working space, and after a period of time, the light goes off. So before we started recording this, she was like, I'm gonna go up and do a dance and turn the light on. And it's
I
just
just
clicked
sit
off.
too far away from the sensor. It's a bane of my life at the moment, guys.
It's a first world problem,
It
but
really
we
is.
understand
Luckily, I had my
nevertheless.
ring light on, so I'm not completely dark at the moment.
It's like suddenly
And
really
on that
eerie.
note, I'm going to go do a dance and turn the light back on.
All right. Well, you have a good time, and I will see you on Friday.
See you on Friday, Ash, and see you later,
All right.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.